Hello guys, this is Scott from Nostalgic Nightmares, still with a very sore throat, and welcome to my review of Ghost of Fear Street number 21, The Creature from Club Lagoona. The reason I chose this book to start off the Ghost of Fear Street reviews from is because it's always one that I remember really enjoying when I was younger. I tend to like a lot of the books where they go to camp or they go on holiday. I think sometimes it adds another level of suspense because they don't really know where they are, they don't know the people around them. Because I like going on like camp and I like going away on holiday, so the idea of going somewhere completely new and really strange things happening to you has always interested me. This book is actually written by Gloria Hattrick. It says in the little information at the start of the book who actually writes it, because they're all ghosts written in this series. And I want to give not a shout out, but I'd like to mention who actually wrote them, because I feel a bit bad on ghost writers because they never actually get a lot of credit for writing books. And like I mentioned in the introduction video, I always thought these were R.L. Stine books, but apparently they're not. But I'm going to apologise right now in case I cough a lot during this video. I'm going to try and edit out as much coughing as I can. And I've got a big drink of water next to me in case I do need to cough. So I'll do what I can so that I don't keep coughing on the microphone for you. And let's jump straight into it. So, the beginning of the story, we are introduced to our main character, who is Tad. And he's going on holiday with his family to Club Lagoona, which is basically like a giant water park. And the three main attractions at Club Lagoona are a creature water slide, which is like a big monster water slide where you slide down its like its tentacle type things. I think it's like an octopus or a squid. It's kind of like one of those rides where you get in like a little dinghy and I guess you shoot out the bottom of the slide. They've got the Atlantis pool, which is the world's largest swimming pool, apparently. And the Log Flume of Doom, Doom slide. Yeah, the Log Flume of Doom. You'll get the Doom slide reference if you're a Goosebumps fan. And he's gone on holiday with his mum, his dad, and his little sister, who's a little bit annoying, but in terms of little sister, she's not too bad for this kind of book. And they're all really, really excited, except for Tad, who has got a secret phobia of swimming and being in the water. He's got a really bad phobia of water, which I can relate with, actually. I have the same phobia. I don't like being underwater. And the reason I have that phobia is because I watched Jaws when I was very, very, very young. And since then, I refused to go in the sea. I remember being on holiday as a kid, and my brother was swimming out in the sea, and I was like crying because I wanted him to get back in because I was so scared that he was going to get eaten by a shark. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, and I know it is, but it's just like one of my phobias. Not particularly swimming pools, but more so kind of in the sea and the ocean. And weirdly enough, although Tad is afraid of the water, he's actually reading the book Jaws, which made me laugh. I guess it's kind of his way to try and get over his fear, maybe. And his whole fear stems from, he had this weird memory of one of his tooth coming out, and he saw it like swimming in, like when he was in the bath maybe, or it was in the sink, and he saw it like swirling around the water, going round and round and round and down the plug hole, and disappeared. And his phobia has been like that ever since. And so they're on the plane, and they're all really excited to go to this holiday park where the main motto is "Let's get wet." I'm not sure that motto is the right word for that, but it's like their slogan is the better word. And the plane arrives on this island because it's the Club Lagoona is just an island with a big water park on it. There's nothing around it except water. And it lands on the dock, and they have to cross this rickety bridge to get to the island. And Ted gets really scared because the bridge dips in the middle, and so the bridge actually starts to sink into the water. And as he's walking across, his sister Polly starts to scream really loud, and he turns around and this giant shark like jumps out of the water to attack him. But in typical Goosebumpsy fashion, it's not a shark. Well, it is a shark. It's a mechanical shark. It's like a part of the attraction. It's a mechanical shark that comes out of the water, sprays water at you, and kind of welcomes you to the park. And again, I have a story about that really reminds me. I went to Florida when I was a kid, about 10 years old, and I went on the Jaws ride. And I'll always remember the one memory I have of that ride is being sat near the edge next to the person I was with at the time. And obviously the shark kept coming out of the water now and again, but I was relaxing and I was enjoying it, just sitting really relaxed. And for some reason, at one part I absolutely shit a brick because I was just casually sat there, going along the water, and out of the corner of my eye I spotted a Jaws jump, like burst out of the water right next to where I was sat. And I screamed like a little bitch. And I'll always remember that moment. So the fact that Tad screamed because his shark jumped out of the water made me really nostalgic for that as well, because it's a really good memory of mine. And they arrive, anyway, they go across the bridge. It's obviously just a mechanical shark. And he arrives at the hotel, and there's a really good description of this hotel, which sounds really cool. You have to like go through the mouth of a whale to get into the entrance of the hotel. And there's coconut trees and palm trees coming out of the ground. And for some reason there's parrots flying around, so I can only imagine that there's a lot of guests at this hotel walking around with like bird shit on them. And there's chameleons like running around these plants. And there's chairs that are in the shape of open clamshells. So it sounds like a really cool, like a themed hotel for the island. But I don't really get how the RSPCA, I don't know if you have that in the US, but how any animal rights activists would be okay with parrots freely flying around this hotel and chameleons walking around. But anyway, it's just to add the ambience. And they're standing at this hotel with a receptionist, and she takes a picture of them, because apparently they take a picture of all the families that come in. And they book themselves onto various different water sports, different kind of aerobics classes and water classes. And Dad gets really excited because he says they've got football and they've got, is it basketball? Some other sport that he really enjoys because he's a jock back home. And they're like, yeah, we've got football. Let's book you onto this like aerobics. No, not aerobics. What am I talking about? There's like aqua football class. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, it's football, but it's like in the water. So it's kind of more, I'm guessing more like a netball type of thing. So he's like, oh God, right, okay. And he goes to have a look around the reception because he's not really interested in getting on any more of the classes. He's approached by this really weird short guy with like a green jumpsuit. And this guy's carrying a bucket of chlorine around with him. And he's basically saying, this place is dangerous. Beware the deep end. Don't go in the deep end. And then he runs away. And Tad's like, what the fuck? This guy's just gave him a warning and ran away. So if at this point you're really thinking, this is very reminiscent of Horrorland, you're very right. It's very reminiscent of Horrorland. There's the log flume of doom, which reminded me of the Doom slide. There's the whale you have to enter the whale's mouth, which is the same. In Horrorland, you have to go for like a dragon's mouth or a monster mouth. And I'm sure there's like a horror that comes and gives them a warning. I know there definitely is in the Horrorland series, the newer series. I'm not sure about the original, because I've not read that for like 15 years maybe. But anyway, Tad's family book in, and they go straight to the park to have a look around. But he says, I'm going to go back to the hotel just to get changed and kind of get changed out of my wet clothes. And he goes to the hotel, get changed, and goes to have a look around the park. And he looks at the main attractions. He looks at the arcade that's there. There's shops, there's arcades, there's restaurants. And he goes towards the Atlantic pool, like the biggest pool in the world, and watches this diver who climbs to the top of this diving board. I'm guessing there's different lengths, so he climbs to the very, very, very top, and he gets nervous just watching this diver, and the diver jumps and jumps and jumps and dives into the water. But for some reason, when he gets into the water, he hears this really weird whirring noise. It's like a really loud whirring noise that starts to like build up, and the diver just disappears like that. It's just gone, and he's screaming and shouting that the diver's disappeared, and the lifeguard appears, jumps into the water to go to where Tad said the diver was, but he's gone. There's no one there. And Tad's family come running along, like, we heard you screaming, what's going on? But the lifeguard gets out and says he thought he saw someone going underwater and disappearing, but there's nobody there. Must have been like a trick of the light or whatever else. Basically, it was all in his head. But as he's talking to his family, once the lifeguard's disappeared, someone tries to pull him into the water by his ankle. And it's one of the employees at the park called Barry. And why he would pull someone into the water, I have no idea. But anyway, Barry gets out of the water and introduces himself to the family. And on his shirt, he's got the word Barracuda, because at Club Lagoona, everyone gets their own Club Lagoona name. So Barry is called Barracuda. His sister, Tad's sister Polly, is called Pollywog, which is some sort of turtle, I think. I could be wrong here. His mum, Catherine's called Catfish. His dad is called Ray, so they call him Stingray. And Tad is called Tadpole. Barry tells them all about this sink or swim competition. And basically what happens at the park is that when you get there, or on your first day or so, all the guests are tested on their kind of level of swimming, how well they can swim, and they have a race at the beginning, so that everyone goes into their own like classes. And again at the end of the week, they have another sink or swim race, because throughout the week they're taught how to improve their swimming. And it's just to see from the beginning to the end of the week, or the end of the holiday, how their swimming has improved. So obviously, Tad's really nervous because he can't swim, he hates the water. But someone pushes him in the water, he's not sure who it is, but it looks like it's Barry, because I think his family have gone by that point. And he's shoved in the water, and he's under the water, and he's struggling, and he can't breathe. He doesn't know how to swim, and he spots something in the distance under the water, and it's something long and something green, and he kind of struggles to see what it is, and then he realises it's a tentacle, and this tentacle is flapping around the water, and it grabs his ankle, but he manages to swim away and get out of the water and dive out the top of the water and jump out of the pool, and tells Barry all about it, and Barry's like, we've got seaweed growing from the bottom of the pool to make it kind of more realistic, so it's probably a seaweed that grabbed you, not a tentacle. You're a dick, Tad. What are you talking about? He doesn't say that, obviously. But yeah, it goes to the next day. Tad tries to hide a swimsuit because he doesn't want to go swimming to the sink or swim, but his parents have just bought him a new one, so he can't get out with it. And as he's going towards the pool, again he sees the guy with the bucket of chlorine from the beginning. He basically tells him to watch out again. But again, he doesn't elaborate on what, he just disappears. And they all get basically separated into groups, boys, girls, men and women, so he's kind of happy at this point, because his parents and his family don't have to see him really badly swimming. And he gets in the water, and all the boys are swimming around, and they go on this race. And he's like one of the only people right at the very back, he's like doggy paddling. And everyone else, except for two other people, are like way out ahead of him. He spots these two other people, and him and these two guys get put in what's called the guppy class. I'm guessing guppies are a type of fish. Maybe they're a slow fish, I'm not sure. But they get put in the guppy class, which are for slow swimmers. And they're called Neil, Club Lagoona name Eel, and Mark, whose Club Lagoona name is Shark. And Barry is their what's the word I'm looking for? Hello, is it me you're looking for? It's swimming instructor, that's the one. He's like, he hosts the class, he's like a teacher. And they're doing some underwater tests where they have to like dive underwater and grab something out of the water, or dive underwater and open their eyes and see how many figures Barry's holding up. But again, as they're underwater, Tad keeps seeing this creature, or this tentacle behind Barry, and Neil and Mark don't see it, he doesn't know what they're talking about. But as he's getting out of the water, he goes to see his sister, and she's going, oh my god, the creature's massive, Did you? And Tad's like, oh my god, you saw the creature? Like, yes, I saw the creature, it's huge. He's like, oh my god, how did you get so close to it? And it basically turns out she went on the creature ride, the water slide, typical fake out, Goosebumpsy R.L. Stein thing. That night they go for a meal in the restaurant, which is called the Fishbowl Restaurant, and it's kind of like in a big glass. All the walls are like glass, and it's kind of underwater. So all around them are fish and sharks swimming around, which I think is a really cool idea for a restaurant, even though I personally would be really scared. But it's like an underwater restaurant, which is really quite cool. But he does mention that it feels like you are in like a fish tank, really. It feels like the fish are kind of looking at you. But after the meal, he goes out for a walk, because he doesn't really want to be with his family. And he goes towards the pool to have a look around. And the pool's dead quiet because it's late on, even though there are some lifeguards there just to kind of keep watch to make sure no one goes in the pool. And the guy appears again with the bucket, and he's like, you know more than you realise. You like, be careful, watch out. And he just runs away. And this time, Tad's not just going to stick around being confused. He follows him. He runs after the guy. And he's following him around the park, and he turns the corner, follows the guy, and the guy's just disappeared. And he looks like he's disappeared into this arcade. And so he runs into the arcade, and he's hit with all this noise. There's arcade games, and kids screaming and laughing, and I'm going to guess there's like air hockey and things like that. So there's all like loads of clattering and banging and screaming, and like, you know what it's like when you go into an arcade, you just hit with noise of beeping and music and fighting and racing and cars and kids, and it's like a really overwhelming sometimes how much noise you can be hit with. But the guy, he runs around, I can't find this guy, but he does spot a game called Underwater Terror 2, and he's before somehow played Underwater Terror 1, so he's like, oh god, go on, I'll play Underwater Terror 2. And then not much else happens in the arcade. He just mentions that he's going to play Underwater Terror 2, and then it cuts to the next day. The next day he wakes up to Polly, and she basically explains that his parents have left a note to say that they've gone to a water aerobics class. But Tad looks at the note, and there's something really weird about this note. He notices that his parents don't write like that. Like, the note is not in their handwriting. I'd be very surprised if a lot of 10, 11-year-olds notice how the parents write. I'd be surprised if they actually paid attention to that kind of thing. But anyway, there's a strange note saying his parents were at the water aerobics class. So he just goes to his guppy lesson, hangs out with Mark and Neil, who are really nice guys. They're the same as him. They're not really overly confident in the water, but they're kind of giving each other a lot of confidence. Even Tad's getting a bit more confident in the water because he's with people that are of a similar kind of skill as him. And they mentioned as well that their parents are all going to water aerobics thing, so it must be this class that all the parents go to. But Tad's agreed to see Polly later on, and Neil's agreed to go meet his family. So when they... Sorry if you can hear my iPad beeping in the background. When they leave the pool, Barry tries to get them to go for an extra lesson. He's like, you need extra lessons, come and stay in the water. But they've agreed to go somewhere else, so Mark's like, right, I'll stay for an extra lesson, I've got nowhere to be. So they go off to their whatever they've got to do with the rest of the day while Mark stays back with Barry. Tad goes back to the hotel room, can't find Polly. He looks around the attractions, can't see her there, can't see her in the pool anywhere. Can't find her in the arcades, can't find her in the shops. He goes back to the guppy class to find Mark, to speak to him. His lesson must have finished because he's disappeared as well. Basically, anyone that he knows has now disappeared, seems to have disappeared from the park. But he does bump into Neil again, and Neil's got the same story as well. Like, Neil can't find his parents, can't find Mark. He is really scared because he doesn't know what's going on. So they go to Mark's room. I think, right, well, he's got to be in his hotel room. If his lesson's over, that's where he's got to be. So they go to his hotel room, knock on the door, and no one answers. And this boy appears in the corridor, and he's like, "Who are you looking for?" He's like, "Well, we're looking for Mark." He's like, "I don't know Mark," but he pulls out this key to that hotel room, and goes into the hotel room and unlocks it. He's like, "Well, this is Mark's room. Mark must be in there." He's like, "This is my hotel room. Mark is not in this room. He must have told you like a lie," and basically shuts the door on them. So they go to reception, and in an overdone twist. In many of these books, they speak to the receptionist, and the receptionist is very much, you probably guessed it by this point, there was never a Markov family like signs in at this hotel, and there was no one like that ever registered here. So they're obviously very, very, very confused, and they don't know what else to do other than ring home. Tad's like, well, maybe my parents had to fly home and never told me. I had to laugh because it must be kind of kid logic, but to really think that you're in a foreign country on holiday and your parents just had to fly home without speaking to you, it's kind of funny. So he just had to ring home to speak to somebody, but as he dials home, this automated message comes up from the park basically saying like, "Let's get wet, you're not wet enough, you must go back to the pool," la, 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 like a really happy, cheery voice. So nothing really happens there because they can't find anybody, can't contact anybody. But as they're leaving the hotel, they bump into Barry, who basically drags them to the pool. He's like, he gives them no choice. He basically, you need another lesson, come to the pool now. And as they're being dragged to the pool, there's like a really creepy part. Because they're being dragged to the pool, but there's no one else in the pool. But all the staff from the hotel and from the park are standing around the edge of the pool watching them. Which is really, it kind of reminds you like Children of the Corn, where everyone just stands and stares at you. So all the staff are watching them, and Barry basically hands some flippers and some snorkels, and for lack of a better term, basically shoves them in the pool. Gives them no choice but to get in the pool. And again, they're doing more tests, but this time they're in the deep end. And one of the tests is to go to the bottom of the pool, so as they're down there, Tad looks around and notices the drain. And the drain's like where it opens up and you can drain the whole pool out. But he notices two kids sat on the drain and looking really, really, really scared and worried. And he tries to kind of not call out to them because obviously he's underwater, but motion to them. And they notice him. But then this whirring noise starts, and it's like a and the drain opens, and a giant tentacle comes out of the drain and grabs the two kids and pulls them under, and the drain snaps shut. So obviously he dives to the surface, like trying to call out to somebody to tell them what happened, but Barry doesn't want to hear it, and he's trying to explain to Neil, like, "Neil, there's a monster under the water. Come out now." But Neil's too focused on the games, and he dives underwater because the next game is to touch the drain and come back up. So Neil's like so focused on winning, so he dives underwater and runs towards the drain, swims as fast as he can towards the drain. Tad's like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" And he's like diving under the water, swimming towards Neil. As he's swimming towards Neil, it goes. So he's swimming, and the drain like opens up, and a tentacle flies out of the drain and starts trying to wrap around them, and he's swimming, trying to pull Neil out of the way, and his tentacles like flapping around, and it grabs Mark, and he wriggles out of it, and it like kind of slams against his chest and knocks him back, and then he gets hit against something, and he realises that him and Neil are like wrapped up together, and then they're both like wrapped around this tentacle, and there's no way out, and the tentacle drags them into the drain, and they go to black. Cuts to black. And at this point, I was like, this is like halfway through the book, and I was like, this is cool. Like, they met the monster really early on. I'm quite impressed with this. But yeah, after being unconscious for a while, Tad eventually wakes up, and he wakes up in like a jungly beach area with his coconut lying next to him, and he's looking around, and all he can see is like jungle, and he's a bit confused about what's really happening. And he thinks he says he's on the edge of a lake, which is a bit confusing because of what happens in a bit, but I'll explain that in a minute. And he starts walking around the jungle trying to find someone, and Neil appears out of nowhere, and he's like, what just happened? Like, we were swimming underwater, something grabbed us, my brain like cut out, I went unconscious, and he's like, what happened? And he basically explains that we got grabbed by this tentacle, and it's like a green, scaly tentacle which comes out of the drain, and it pulled us into the drain, and now we're here. So they go looking through the jungle, and they actually like go into like this opening, and they see everybody that's gone missing. They see Tad's family, Tad's mum, dad and sister, Mark's family, Mark is there, Neil's family's there, and the kids that were in the drains there, other people that disappeared, the diver that died in the pool at the beginning's there. And they're all really confused. Wow, what's happening? Like, why are we here? But they're all aware that they got grabbed by something underwater. And they figure the only way to kind of find a way out is to just go walking and try and find an escape route. So they're walking through the jungle, and there's trees and there's bushes, and then they hit a wall. And they're feeling this wall, and they're pushing leaves out of the way, and they find out it's like a big glass wall. And they kind of explore this glass wall a bit more, and they realise that outside of the glass wall is just water, and they see fish swimming past and sharks swimming past, and they can see that like right high on this glass wall is like the top of the water level, so they know that they're underwater. And so they go exploring around even more. They follow the glass wall around, and then they hit another glass wall, like a corner, and they're like, what is going on here? They go around another one, another glass wall. So on all four sides of them, the glass walls, and they're stuck in it, which is like a callback to the restaurant they were in, when they were sat having a meal, and they were surrounded by glass and fish and sharks. The same thing's happened here. They're basically in like a giant fish tank, but the fish are outside and the humans are inside. And on all four sides of them, it's just a giant glass wall with the ocean on the other side. At the very, very top is like the top of the water level, but it's to a level where they can't get out. So they're trying to think of a way to escape, and they're really confused about what's happening, when this giant eyeball appears on the other side of the glass wall. This giant, like, creepy, veiny eyeball, and it's looking at them, and they're obviously staring at it, and the parents are like, what's going on? Like, what the fuck? And the kids are like screaming, and Polly's screaming, and Mark and Neil and Tad are all really scared, like, what, this eyeball? And it's connected to a giant monster, but they can't really see the whole of it because it's so fucking huge. And then this tentacle like appears on the side of the fish tank, and you can see all like this screen, it's scaly and it's slimy, and all these suckers are attached to the side of the glass. And the tentacle starts like wiggling up the glass and wiggling up, and it reaches over the top and starts flapping around. And at this point, Tad's dad grabs him and like throws him like into like his ditch, so it's kind of hidden away from the monster. But this monster grabs Mark and Mark's family. It kind of circles them up and holds them together and grabs them. And Tad sees them fly into the air, and they're screaming for help and trying to get out and wriggling around trying to get out of the tentacle. And the monster basically flies over the top of the tentacle flies over the top of the fish tank. Mark's family get dragged underwater, and Tad kind of like closes his eyes because he's so scared about what's happening. Like, oh my god, they're gonna drown under there. And then he hears like a that's probably not the best sound, but he hears a crunch, crunch, crunch. And Mark and his family have been eaten by the monster. They've been eaten by the monster. I was like, holy crap, like, people don't die in these books, and this family, like a kid and the parents, have just been eaten by a monster. I was like, holy shit. Like, not Mark, Tad's so upset, he's like, oh my god, like, they've just been eaten, like, what the hell, where are we? And all the people that are in this like fish tank, they go to the middle of the jungle, or what they kind of guess is like the middle area, because they figure if they're going to get away from the monster, that the middle is probably like the best they're going to be, because it's hidden under jungle and under trees, and it's the furthest away from the side. And they're all having like a big debate on where to go, what to do, and what's happening, because no one really knows what's going on, or no one knows of a way out. But Tad, being the big old brave boy that he is, decides to go off on his own, like you do in this situation. And he goes exploring, and he goes along the glass wall, like very, very slowly, all the way around the fish tank, trying to find like a door, or a hatch, or a ladder, or anything that will kind of find them a way out, or an explanation as to how they got in there. And he's working his way around, and he gets around pretty much to all four walls and sees nothing. But then he's watching this turtle that's flying around outside the tank, what am I talking about? That's swimming around outside the tank, and this turtle keeps bumping into something. And as he looks up quite high in the distance, he can see that this turtle's bumping into like a pipe. And he notices that there's like a clear opening quite high up in the tank. And it looks like there's this pipe that's connected to this opening, so that's the way out. That must be the way they got in, because it's a pipe. I'm a bit confused as to how he didn't see the pipe. I mean, if you're looking around, yeah, fair enough, it's underwater, so things are quite blurry. But if you're looking around for an exit, a pipe is pretty obvious. And he mentioned, I think he says it's like a black pipe. So how he wouldn't spot that, I don't know. But, R.R. Stein logic, even though it's not written by R.R. Stein. Oh, pardon me. I'm just trying to clear my chest a bit, sorry guys. And, yeah, anyway, so he sees this pipe. And Tad turns into the Hulk. He literally turns into the Hulk, and he picks up a palm tree and places it against the opening to the pipe. Where he got these muscles from, I have no idea, but he basically picks up a whole tree, which has been knocked down, and puts it against this opening, climbs a tree, and gets into the pipe. And he's like, right, I probably should tell my parents or the family and the people there what's going on, but I'm just going to climb along this pipe and see where it goes. And so he's climbing along, convinced now that this pipe connects it at the Atlantis pool somehow, because it's a really, really long pipe. But as he's climbing along, he hears murr, and water just comes pouring out of the other end of the pipe, and he spots it in the distance. He just hears this noise, and he sees like a glinting in the distance, and before it's too late, he notices the water's just flying at him, and it hits him like a brick wall, and he's flying along this water, struggling to breathe, and gets thrown out the other end of the pool, back into the fish tank, and back onto the bit where he landed in the first time. So, by this point, he has no idea what's going on. His family reappear, I think. Do they reappear? I'm sure they reappear. But he knows that's the way out. He's now got an escape route. That pipe is the way to get out. He just needs to figure out the best time when to go there, and to come up with a better plan. But I'm not sure whether the family are there or not at this point, so I do apologise, but at this time, the eye appears again at the side of the tank and scares him. And he's watching this eye, and before he's got a chance to run and hide, the tentacle goes off the top of the tank and grabs Tad. And Tad's like being lifted out the side of the tank, and he gets lifted so high that he says he can see the Club Lagoona in the distance. It's like a little dot in the distance. He's lifted so high, the club and the tank are just like little dots. So he must be like miles and miles and miles in the air. And he looks down, and it's never like a full description of this monster. But basically this monster is described as like a giant, green, scaly thing with like lots and lots and lots of tentacles at the bottom of it. And his big mouth and tons of suckers all attached to everywhere. And it's never like, I don't remember it being a clear description of what it looks like. It was a bit confusing for me, so I couldn't really picture the monster in my head. But basically, it's gigantic. It's bigger than basically the Atlantis pool, because it can lift him so high. Well, it's bigger than the Club Lagoona. It lifted him so high that the clubs are just a dot in the distance. And it begins playing with him, not in like a funny way, but it's like dropping him into the pool, picking him back up again, throwing him in the air, catching him, and just kind of flying him around the air. But he realises when he's like stuck in the tentacle that it's so slimy that he's wriggling to get out, and that's not the best way to do it. He starts to rub himself against the monster's suckers. That sounds wrong. He rubs himself against the sucker and gets all wet and slimy. Oh, oh, my mind is so dirty. Yeah, he starts rubbing himself against the sucker and gets all slimy. He gets covered in the slime. So he basically slips out of the monster. But he doesn't think very far about it because obviously he's going to drop into the water and the slime's going to wash off him. But he falls into the water and the monster can't grab him at this point, and he climbs onto like a coral reef, which for those who don't know, a coral reef is a kind of... I don't know if it's a plant or a rock. I'm not entirely sure what it is. I know what it looks like, but it's in the water and it's like a hard thing that you can like sit on. But I'm sure it's meant to burn you. I need to learn. The reason I don't know a lot about the sea is because it scares me. But he climbs on the coral reef and he thinks he's safe. The monster doesn't seem to be grabbing him at this point. The monster seems to have disappeared. So he starts running towards this fountain in the distance. And I forgot to mention before, in the middle of Club Lagoona is a giant fountain. Like a really, 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 really tall one. It shoots water dead high. And he spots this fountain in the distance and starts walking towards it. But the coral starts moving. And as you probably guessed it, because it was a pretty obvious twist, he is actually on the back of the monster now, not the coral. How he didn't know that, I'm not sure, because he did mention that the monster's like green and scaly, so whether it's got like, because coral's like pinky orangey, reddy, whether it's got like that kind of colour parts on its back maybe, I don't know. But as he's walking along towards the park, the monster starts rising and rising and rising out of the water, and he stood on the back of it, and he gets really, really scared, because he's stood on the back of this gigantic monster with no hope of escape, and it grabs him again, and starts playing with him again, dropping him in the water, going like flying him in the air. And Tad knows that at this point, the monster is like a cat basically. It's going to play with him for so long, and then it's going to get bored, and then it's going to eat him like they were Mark and his family. And he literally has, it's not like he's got any hope of escape. He has no idea what to do, no idea how to defeat the monster, no idea how to escape, because every chance he tried to escape, he gets caught again. He's not near enough to the fish tank to get back in. He knows that now he's got no hope other than to die, basically. He's going to get eaten. And the monster gets bored. And it's moving him closer and closer to its mouth. And for some reason, it puts one of the suckers right over Mark's face, Tad's face, so he can't breathe. And I'm sorry if I've been calling Tad Mark. I keep mixing the names up. But if you watch any of my other reviews, you know I do that a lot anyway, because I talk so fast. He's got a sucker on his face, and so you can picture it, he's in the middle of the ocean, away from his family who've been captured by this monster, gigantic monster in the ocean, and it's got a sucker over his face so he can't breathe, and it's moving him closer and closer so he can eat him, and he screams as loud and as hard and as fucking scream as he possibly can. I'm not even going to attempt to scream because it'll hurt my voice even more than it does already. So he screams as loud and girly as he possibly can. And then he opens his eyes, and there's no sucker on his face. There's no monster. He's done it. He's okay. But where is he? He's not in the water. He's not in the fish tank. He's in a room. He's in a dark room. And he's looking around going, what? 1 minute I'm in the clutches of a monster, now I'm in this dark room. But he looks down and all these suckers are still attached to him. So he pulls all these suckers off and puts them on the floor. What's going on? What? And he notices that all the suckers have got wires attached to them. He's like, what's going on? And he notices that in his hand are a pair of goggles. And he's just like, looking at the goggles like, what? And then from the back of the room, Mark and Neil come in. They come in like, oh, how was it? He's like, what? Basically, the twist is, he's been playing Underwater Terror 2 most of the time for this book. So when he went into the arcade, I presume earlier on in the story, when he followed the little man in, he played Underwater Terror 2, which is a virtual reality game. So I'll get into my theories on that in a minute, but basically most of the time for this book, the second half of the book, the whole thing has been virtual reality. None of it was real. And he explains to Mark and Neil about how real it felt. And they're like, oh, so the game's really good then? He went, yeah, I genuinely thought this was all real. And they explained that when they take your photographs when they enter the hotel at the beginning, like I mentioned, the receptionist took a photograph of the family. They put all the photographs into like this virtual reality system. So it must be the hotel have created this game to really scare people. And yeah, the whole Underwater Terror thing was a game, really. I'll go on to my thoughts on that later on. But the book's not over there, it carries on. I'm almost finished. But Tad is a lot happier now. He's like, all the scary stuff that happened to me in the water, most of it anyway, was all a game. I've got nothing to be scared of. I got caught. The diver that I thought disappeared at the beginning must have just swam somewhere else and come out somewhere else that I didn't notice. The green thing that grabbed me must have just been seaweed. And when I spotted the green thing float in the water when I was doing the test with Barry, I must have just been seeing things, It must have just been seaweed as well, maybe. So he's a lot happier now. He feels a lot more confident in the water. He feels really safe in the water. Pardon me. Hiccuped again. And he's actually feeling quite confident in the water. He's actually getting really good at swimming. So, it's the last day. Is it the last day or is it the first day? Not the first day, second day. Either way, there is a sink or swim race that happens. And he's really confident. He's kind of buzzing. And he's in the water and the race starts and he speeds off. He's like swimming through this like there's no tomorrow. And he keeps looking over at his competitors, and he's actually in the lead. And from someone who was really scared at the beginning, he's now in the lead, and his family are like, go on, Dad, come on. And his mum's screaming for him, and Polly's screaming, like, in a good way, like, screaming and shouting, like, come on, you're winning. And he's looking around, and he's, like, way out ahead of everybody else, and he sees someone catching up to him, so he, like, puts extra effort in to swim even further and further and further, and he keeps putting his head underwater, obviously, because that helps you swim faster. Got to breathe, and then he puts his head underwater, and then he hears, and he realises he's now going to come face to face with the real creature of Club Lagoona. And that's how it ends. Yeah. I'll go on to my thoughts soon. As usual, I talk about obviously things that aren't really explained, and I guess the main one really is this whole virtual reality game. It's a bit of a Wizard of Oz, it was all a dream twist, which obviously is a bit disappointing, but I guess the real uncertain bit is where it started. I mean, you're led to believe that it started where, once he followed that guy with a bucket of chlorine, who warned him about the deep end, he followed him into the arcade and he disappeared, and he sees the underwater terror too. So we're meant to believe that it started there. It's never really fully explained, but I'm guessing that's where he goes into the game and plays it. But how Mark and Neil know he's in the game is a bit confusing, because he doesn't see them. They must just wander in and see him there at one point, maybe. I'm not too sure. But I'm going to have to take it at face value that that's when the game started, and everything before that was just a coincidence. That the diver did just disappear and swim somewhere else, and the seaweed was what grabbed him. But then at the same time, at the end of the book, he hears the whirring. Is that just the drain cleaning out some of the pool? Or is that the creature now actually coming out? Is there a real creature of Club Lagoona? Was the bit at the beginning, was that the diver actually kidnapped by the creature? Did he see the creature? Did the creature grab him underwater? And is the creature that is in the game the same creature that's going to appear at the end of the book? Is Underwater Terror 2 basically a real life scenario, and is the real creature of Club Lagoona? And that's kind of the park's twisted way of having their own little bit of fun, and they offer all these guests as like sacrifice to this creature. That's what I believe. That's what I'm going to believe anyway. That at the beginning the creature was actually attacking people, and this park, similar to how I know, if you read Goosebumps, like the horror camp Jelly Jam, the camper, what are they called, like the hosts, like the guys that work at the camp, working for the King Jelly Jam. That's what little I remember. And I think kids are they sacrifices, or they have to earn certain things for the king. I can't remember. So I'm going to go, it's a similar story to that it's, they work for this creature, and they kind of sacrifice kids and families to it. And so at the beginning it was a real creature, then most of the book was a simulation in this game, and at the end the creature was actually going to come and start maybe kidnapping Frank. Not Frank, who the fuck's Frank? Who the hell is Frank? Kidnapping Tad. So that's my explanation, what I think happened. Like I say, it's not fully clear. I'm guessing it's led up to your imagination, which I kind of like at the same time, because at the end of the day there might be no creature, but I'm going to just guess because I like to think there is a creature. And the only other thing that I really had a strange, what's the word I'm looking for? If you listen to my reviews, you know that I struggle to find words a lot. That the big creature being real would explain a lot of things. It would explain why the staff act really weird. and Barry's so like rough with Tad, trying to get him into the water and like pushing him in and stuff, and why the guy with the bucket of chlorine is trying to warn him away from the deep end and trying to warn him from the water. So like it's never fully explained who this guy with the chlorine is. He's probably just a park employee who maybe doesn't like what's happening. I would have liked a bit more backstory to him. I think it would have been a lot of very interesting to find out a bit more about who he is and his motives. Or maybe to see him get kidnapped by the creature and he appears in that fish tank, maybe. I don't know, because the fish tank's a game. He was real. I don't know. But I like the ideas of this, but I think they could have expanded a bit more. I'll get to that in a bit. On to my worst cliffhanger of the book. It's going to be chapter 7, and I'm recording this of a night time. Well, it's 9:20 here, and it's getting dark, so I can't actually read the book, and I can't be bothered moving to put a light on. I can just see my laptop screen and the microphone. So the end of chapter 7 is basically where they go to the hotel register receptionist and find out that Mark is not registered to the hotel, and neither his family, and they never were. The reason that I didn't like this cliffhanger, it is a good cliffhanger if you've not read a lot of these books, but from memory and from watching the Goosebumps TV show, and I don't think it's in You Afraid of the Dark, but that was an amazing TV show as well. But it's a very typical cliffhanger. I remember it from, I know I've not reviewed them yet, I remember it from 2 occasions at least. Goosebumps Horrorland, number 1, Revenge of the Living Dummy. That part of that Horrorland bit at the end, spoiler alert if you've not read it, the character's parents disappear. They go to the receptionist. No, your parents were never registered here. Or they've signed out. I can't remember exactly how it worked out. But I know in Night in the Terror Tower, in Goosebumps, they can't find their parents in the hotel. Go to reception. No, your parents were never registered here. And I get why they used that cliffhanger, because it is scary for a kid. You know, wouldn't you be scared if you were on holiday and your parents disappear? And you go to find them at reception and they go, well, no, your parents were never here. That would scare the hell out of you. The reason that I chose it as like my least favourite cliffhanger is just because it's overdone. It's been done 1,001 times, and maybe back in the day it wasn't. And it's not saying I don't like the cliffhanger, because I do read these with major like, nostalgia goggles on, which, but by that I mean, but when you've got beer goggles, you think someone's attractive when they're not because you're drunk. Nostalgia goggles, I loved these as a kid, so I probably enjoyed them more than I would do if I'd never read them before. Maybe, I don't know. So it is a good cliffhanger. It's just one that I've read quite a lot of the time, so I was a bit disappointed by that. My favourite cliffhanger is chapter 10, and that's where him and Tad and Neil have been grabbed by the tentacle and dragged into the drain, and they black out. And the reason I chose this one is because I really liked it as a twist in the story. Like, normally, the monster never fully reveals itself towards the end on a lot of these stories. I'm trying to think if I've reviewed it anywhere they have. Ghostly Playmate, they revealed it towards the end of the book. The ghost revealed itself at the end. Anything else that I've read? Living Dummy, we didn't know it wasn't the dummy until the end of the book. Creep from the Deep's not the same. But you know what I mean? A lot of these stories, like, they see things or they hear things or bad things happen, and then towards the end it's kind of revealed what happens. But halfway through this book they get grabbed by a monster. And I really like that. I was really excited by that point, because the bit I remember as a kid was them being in a fish tank. I remember the kid and the family all being in a fish tank while the monster's outside the fish tank looking in at them. And that's the image that stuck in my head. And I like the fact that about halfway through the book they get grabbed in by the monster, and you don't really know what's going to happen, and it's a good ramp up in danger for them, because this is like, they're not just in this pool anymore, they're not just in a water park where things happen, they're now in the lair of the monster, which for halfway through the book is a good pacing. It moves quite fast. I forgot to mention at the beginning that it's 105 pages long, this book, and it's 18 chapters, so yeah, it's just over halfway through. But yeah, I really liked it because, like I say, it ramps up the danger for them. Like, the first half's set in the water park, which I really liked, and we now know the second half's going to take place somewhere with this monster, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where it's going to end up. We don't know what the monster's going to do to them. We don't know what the monster wants to eat them. Does it want to kill them? Does it want to keep them in a tank somewhere? But we now know that we're going to find out what happens to everybody else in the book. We know that we're going to find out where the parents have gone, where the diver went from the beginning, where the kids had disappeared to, that kind of thing. On to the review of the cover. Now, this is a weird one. I loved this cover as a kid, because this image always stuck in my mind. Whenever I thought about Ghost of Fear Street, this is the first one that would always come into my head, because I liked the image of this monster in his swimming shorts, with a cocktail in his hand, on his little like floaty rubber dinghy thing, rubber ring in a pool. I love that image because it's quite a funny image, and it is a well-designed image, and it's a nice image. However, it has no relation to the story whatsoever. Yes, there is a monster. Yes, it's in a water park, but it's about this ginormous monster that lives through the drains outside the park and drags people through the drains. It's not about like a semi-human sized monster who can swim around in the water. Or maybe that monster on the front of the book is the real creature of Club Lagoona, and maybe the green thing he saw in the park at the beginning was this creature, and at the end of the book, when he hears the whirring, this creature from the cover is going to come out. I don't know. I don't think the author thought that much about it, because the author probably doesn't have any say whatsoever on the cover. She doesn't have her name on the front of the book, so she's going to have no relation on the cover, no influence on the cover. So, I love the image, but I don't like it as the cover for this book because it's not related whatsoever. It's a similar theme, monster in a water park. Like I say, I love it because it's kind of a funny monster smiling with his cocktail in his hand. But again, no relation from the book. Okay, on to the review of the actual story though. It's quite relatable for me. Like I said at the beginning, I have a fear of swimming. I'm going on holiday next week, so I'm a bit scared. I'm going to have to go swimming at some point. I have a fear of being underwater, especially in the sea. And the monsters and the sharks and the fish that are under there really freak me out. It's just not my jam. I don't like it whatsoever. I get really scared when I watch like shark things and documentaries about sea creatures. I just don't like it. I get really nervous. So the character was relatable. I understood his fear, and especially I understood his like slow learning how to swim, because I would be the same. Like I learned to swim when I was in school because I had to. But I've not swum since I was in school. And I like the fact that he keeps seeing this creature underwater. And I did love the fact that it ramped up really quickly. He saw the creature a couple of times, and then boom, he's got kidnapped by this creature. And when he goes into this fish tank, all his family are there. Because in these stories, as you all know once you've read these stories, the family never believe what happens. A sister might at some point, or a brother might, but 9 times out of 10, the family never ever believe what's going on. Even if once they've seen things that are like strange, they always kind of explain it away. So I loved the fact that in this one, the family were in the danger as well. And I was dead excited because I was like, right, this is the first time I've read one of these books where the kids and the family and a group of people, like a giant group of people, are actually in danger at the same time, and they're all stuck in this thing where there's a monster trying to get them. And it reminds me of some horror films that I've seen where there's a big group of people trying to get out. And I love that, because there's a big twist on the usual formula of these books. And I was dead excited to see how the relationships would unfold. Like I liked that the dad was saving Tad when the monster tried to attack, and they were quite protective of him, and because that's what families would do. And they were worried when he disappeared on his own, and I was dead excited to see how these relationships would unfold, with the family being in the danger as well, because like I say, it's a new thing. And I hope you like that as well, because I thought that was a good twist on what would normally happen. Obviously, they're not in the tank for too long before Tad gets whipped away by the monster, and I would have liked it to kind of lasted a bit longer in there. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the second Hunger Games. If you read the Hunger Games book, I've not seen the film. I've read the books, where they're actually in like an island environment, and there's a big group of them trying to survive. So I would have liked the fish tank section to have lasted a couple of chapters longer, as they all tried to come up with plans and ways to escape and failed. But I liked that. I mean, I liked the fact that they were all together, like I said, about 20 times now. I love the water park environment. Water parks do interest me. I like slides and stuff. I'm just scared of the water. But it did remind me a little bit of Horrorland. I'm going to guess this is where they got the inspiration from. The fact they had to go through a monster's mouth to get into the park. I know everything's themed by the theme of the park, and all the rides have like special names, and the log flume of doom has got to be like a twist on the doom slide. And yeah, so it was kind of like a rip-off of Horrorland, but I didn't mind too much. Horrorland has a special place in my heart. No one can touch that. So it didn't bother me too much. I was enjoying it for what it was. But onto the end twist, I don't know if I liked it or not. I'm really not sure, which is a first for me. I'm just not sure. I felt a bit cheated by the fact that it was all a game. However, it was signposted at the beginning, about so many pages in, that he was going towards the arcade and towards this game. But it is very much a Wizard of Oz style. It was all a dream. And like a certain fucking Goosebumps Horrorland book that I read recently. You know which one I'm talking about, guys. Where most of that wasn't real, but I'll get onto that when I get onto my ranting review of that book. So I felt really cheated by that. But at the same time, it didn't ruin my enjoyment of what came before. It just lessened all of the danger that happened. So it's a bit of a confusing one. I didn't like the fact that it ended as it was all a dream, it was all a computer game type twist. But I did like the fact that there was still potentially a creature in Club Lagoona that they were going to be confronted with, and it was about to kind of make its appearance known. I liked that twist because it meant that if all the creature sightings would have been this game and that was it, then I would have been a major cheat. But the fact that this game might have been linked to the creature that might actually be in Club Lagoona kind of made it slightly more interesting. So I'm just on the fence a little bit about the ending. I can't say I liked it. I can't say I didn't like it. I'm still just really unsure. But one of the really interesting things that I mentioned before I got into my rating of the book, in the back of the book they have adverts for kind of like trips to go meet R.L. Stine, like a competition. And I noticed on this page, which I'll try and put a picture in, the video editor that I use at the moment is really crap. I used to use like really expensive ones when I used to work with video editing, so I'm a really good editor. But I have no money and a crap laptop, so I can't get a really good quality one, so I use Windows Movie Maker, which is terrible. So I'll try and splice in the picture here. But anyway, at the back of the book there's an advert for the audiobook, like so you can actually listen to the book rather than read it, which you can send off for. And what I loved is that actually one of the guys who reads the audiobook, as it says, I shall show you the list if I can. Yeah, one of the guys that actually reads the audiobook is Will Ferrell. And he's like one of the biggest comedian actors at the moment in films. And if you don't know who he is, he's in films like Elf. He plays the main character. Step Brothers. He was in The Office briefly. What else is he in? I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan. I like Elf and some of the things he's done, but I don't particularly like him. But I thought it was really funny that before he was famous, he was doing audiobooks for Ghost of Fear Street. So I kind of really want to try and get a copy of it. I don't have a tape player, but I might see if I can hunt down a copy of it, because I think it'll be interesting to see who Will Ferrell plays. My guess is he plays Barry. I don't know, because I don't think he'll play obviously any of the kids. My guess is he plays Barry, or maybe Tad's dad. But yeah, it's just interesting to know that he read out this book when he was a kid. He's obviously not the only only narrator, speaker, person. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing. I hope you found it interesting as well, or I'm talking nonsense for the sake of it. Yeah, so rating for this book. Again, loved it as a kid. Not as keen on it as an adult, purely because I clearly forgot it was all a virtual reality game. So I'm going to give it what do I give it? Because I did really enjoy it, I'm going to give it a B+. If they'd have just changed the ending somehow to it not being a game, I would have loved it. I'm not saying it's the best written book, it's not. I'm not saying it's the most original book, it's not. But I just have such a place in my heart for this book, and I love these kind of Horrorlandy, theme parky books, and so I always like them more than some other books, like Ghosts in particular. I'm not a big fan of ghost books unless they're done really well. But if they'd have maybe expanded a bit in the water park, in the fish tank, sorry, and made the ending different, so that somehow he defeated the monster, or managed to get away, or even somehow he died, which is dark, but somehow there was a bad ending or a good ending, anything other than it was all a game, I would have given this an A- or an A for definite, 100%. I'm still not giving any books an A+ yet, because I've not been like loving it. But there might be some coming up, you don't know. But yeah, the rating for this is a B+. But I'd like to point out at this point, for anyone who is listening, I'm actually going on holiday in about 4 or 5 days' time. I'm going on holiday to Greece. I only booked it yesterday, so I'm going away like 6 days after booking it, which is really nervous. So the next few days I'm going to be busy making sure I've got everything that I need and packing and that kind of thing. I'm going to try, I'm not going to promise anything, and get at least 1 or 2 more reviews recorded, or at least 1 review recorded, and so it will come out when I go away and like schedule it to come out later on. I can't promise that, but I should have time to do at least 1 more, because the recording it doesn't take too long. It's uploading it to YouTube, so I've got a really bad upload speed. But if there's a bit of a gap between the next couple of reviews, that is why I'm on holiday. I'm not being ignorant. Like at the moment, while I've got no job, while I am busy applying for jobs and seeing people, I am got a lot more free time to do these reviews. So I'll do them every few days or so, every week or so, while I can. Might go less once I've got a job, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So yeah, I'll be away from next Wednesday to the Tuesday afterwards. After that, once I've recovered from a week sweating like a motherfucker in Greece, I will probably recover from the jet lag and sleep for about a day, and then try and get another review up as soon as possible. And I might do a little fan choice maybe for while I go away, just as a little thank you to the few subscribers that I have got. I don't know, just because I do appreciate it when anyone subscribes or leaves me a comment. So I'd like to thank, I'm not sure if he's going to be listening this far into it, one of my commenters called Batman. He left a really nice comment on my review of Shivers number 25, A Ghostly Playmate, just about how he felt like he'd read the book after my review because I was so detailed. So I really appreciate that. It's really nice and really touching. So that's my review of Goosebumps 21, The Creature from Club Lagoona. Please let me know if you have read this book and what are your thoughts. And as usual, my Twitter is Nostalgic Nightmares, without the vowels, NSTLGC and GHTMRS. Link is in the description. I am going to set up a Facebook as well, so you can see what I'm going to be reading next. But for now, guys, that's me out, and thank you for listening, and take care of yourselves.